right, good morning, Lionhearts. I'm breaking open my bag of first snow. It's gonna be some good coffee this morning. Well, good morning, my friends. It's your old pal Jordan the Lion. Today, so far, is perfect. Not too hot, not too cold, not too sunny, not too shady. Today is gonna be a good day. And what are we gonna do for the vlog? Well, I don't exactly know quite yet. Come on! Come on! I was just throwing your bag away, let's go! And there's everybody's buddy Jaw. Well, if you're wondering why I don't know exactly what we're gonna do for a vlog yet, it's not because I didn't plan, I actually did plan, but the problem was that I woke up today and had an idea for something else. And that something else was actually to interview someone about something. So I woke up about 4 o'clock in the morning, sent this guy an email and asked him if I could interview him today, and if we're able to do that, we'll do that, and if not, we'll go ahead and do what I was gonna do anyway. Either way, they're both gonna be great, but I just thought, you know what? This might be an interesting one to do, especially with tomorrow being Thanksgiving. They have nothing to do with each other, but I just thought this might be an interesting one to do because tomorrow is all gonna be about the Thanksgiving holiday here in California. So for now, we're gonna take this guy for a walk, and then I'm probably gonna hit the grocery store and get some stuff for tomorrow. And then, somewhere around noon, if I haven't heard from this guy, we'll go and do my original idea for the vlog. This one's being awful defiant today. He's pulling a lot of laying down and not wanting to move things today. Well, I woke up today and had an email from the photographer and actually had all the final retouches sent to me, all 9 of them, and they all looked great. So I sent them off to my agent, sent them off to the manager. Both of them were really happy, so now I just gotta pay the 150 bucks to get them put on LA Casting. It is nuts how much they charge you just to get just to add new photos. It is crazy, but you have to do it. In fact, literally I got an email from my manager yesterday saying that that like there's one of the companies that does casting for TV will only use that company, so we have to do it. And I'm thinking I'll very likely put some of those photos at the end of this vlog so you can see what they ended up looking like when it was all said and done. Alright gang, let's start this vlog. It has since turned into a scorcher out here. Kind of hard to believe it's this hot when it's going to be Thanksgiving tomorrow. Now for today's vlog, we're taking the time machine back to 1970. The Rolling Stones. They had just released Sticky Fingers that had the massive hits of Brown Sugar and Wild Horses, and had realized that they were in a contract with their manager where he not only was going to own pretty much everything they had ever done, but everything they ever would do. So they decided to fire their manager. Now once they had realized what kind of contract they had with Alan Klein, their manager, like I said, they got out of the contract and soon realized that he had not paid any of their taxes. So the government of London came looking for them and basically was going to arrest them all and send them into exile for not being able to pay their taxes. Basically going to take over all of their assets. So to stop this from happening, all of the members of the Rolling Stone all fled to France. Mick Jagger got married to a woman named Bianca, and they were residing in Paris. And basically the rest of the band was living in the south of France, where they would start working on their next album, Exile on Main Street. Now there's an often told rumor that Keith Richards addressed and said, for years people have been saying that Jim Morrison titled that album, Exile on Main Street, but he said actually that wasn't the case. He said during that time they were living in the south of France and Jim Morrison was living in Paris where he died. He said, we never ran into him in that time, never saw him, he never was around. That's just one of those things that's been started as a rumor and has went down as a supposed truth, he said, but it's not true. Now once the band fled the UK before their assets could be seized, they went to France, and one of the problems with that was that it was so abrupt, it happened so quickly that they weren't really ready for it, and the members of the band couldn't get the food and the type of things that they were used to, and so they kind of were getting stir crazy, but they were also getting a little depressed. And basically in the south of France in those times, if you had money you could get drugs, and all of a sudden they were able to get just about any drug they wanted, and they did. And they got a pretty heavy contingent of hanger-ons that would party at this villa where they would end up setting up a recording studio to record Exile on Main Street. Now, it's said that at that time, there just was no recording studio that could have handled that kind of recording in the south of France. So what they did was they had, Keith was renting this gigantic villa, and the basement was broken into kind of separate rooms, so they ended up setting up a recording studio down in that basement. And they said though it wasn't ideal and though it wasn't a very good idea, it was just done out of necessity. Now, this turned into a total party haven, and since Mick Jagger was newly married, a lot of the times he would just take off and not even be at the recordings. He would actually be in Paris with his wife. And since Mick was always kind of the take charge member of the band, that meant that all the work they were doing was just kind of meandering with no purpose, and so they really had no finished songs after the months they had spent there recording. They eventually had to leave that southern France villa. Now, the reason they had to leave the villa was because their drug use became so well known in that town that the cops were going to come and bust down the doors and arrest them all. So to get out of there before they could do that, they all fled. And they weren't actually charged, but they did get out before. But they got out with a lot of recordings of songs that weren't finished or had no structure. Now, to give you an idea of how bad the drug use was at this time, one of the nights they were recording inside the villa, they actually got robbed while they were watching TV. 8 guitars, a saxophone, an upright bass, and they didn't even hear it. So by the time they left the south of France and they left the villa, it was actually November of 1971. And Mick said they did what they always did. They always finished their records in LA. So today, we're going to where they finished Exile on Main Street. I'm going to tell you how that album got its name, and why it was finished here. Now, what's interesting to me is that this album has went on to become maybe what a lot would say the most definitive and best Rolling Stones album, or cohesive album, for its diversity. And Mick Jagger would actually say that when they started this album, he goes, all this album was it was a bunch of songs that hadn't fit on other albums that we knew we'd eventually use at some point. Now, the reason he said that was because when they brought the tracks here and started editing them as an individual track, the music, the guitars, the bass, they didn't sound very good, but when you put them together and you added Billy Preston and Dr. John, they took on a whole new sound, a whole new gospel-y type sound. Now, the actual title for this album came in part from their Exile from the UK, but in other part from photographer Robert Frank. When they hired him to do the album cover shoot, he took them down to Main Street of Los Angeles and photographed them with homeless people and drug addicts. And Mick Jagger said that everybody that would see them would come out and go, "Are you Mick effing Jagger?" "Oh man," he said, "we had a great day." Now, when the Stones got here to start mixing the album, like I said, they didn't really have many finished tracks. Happy was finished, but Keith Richards said that kind of started out as a joke song. It was just because he actually was always so often late to the recording sessions in France that the one day he was actually early, they started just playing a riff and joking around this Happy beat, and that became the song Happy. And Mick Jagger would actually say that when they got here, he had no lyrics, really no melodies. He said, "I sat down one day and talked to the housekeeper in the house that they had rented for me, and she was telling me how she liked to play dice, and I'd never even heard of that or seen anybody play it, so she told me what it was all about," and he said, "That's how I actually wrote the song Tumblin' Dice." And then he also said some of the ways that he would end up putting together the lyrics for those songs was he would just sit, he and Keith would write down phrases, and they would cut them up and just mix and match them, just to kind of hodgepodge them, and that's how the lyrics would come together. And this album had those great songs like Happy, Tumblin' Dice, Sweet Virginia. We'll actually pop into Amoeba and I'll show you the album cover and the song listing. Cinerama Dome's looking good. It's all superheroed out. Nothing like a calm day in Hollywood. Alright, let's pop on in. Alright, here it is. Now, I was mistaken. It's actually the back cover that they did all those photos. See? And Robert Frank actually did them all in Super 8, which I think was a good choice. And here on this version, you can actually see more of a track listing. Rocks Off, Rip This Joint, Shake Your Hips, Sweet Virginia, Tumbling Dice, Casino Boogie, Ventilator Blues, Let It Loose, Shine a Light, Soul Survivor. Good stuff. I really dig this artist's work up here. This Dandy Warhol's poster is done like the Andy Warhol soup can. Pretty cool. Well, I think I've set it up enough. We're just a few blocks away from the studio. And that's CNN. That's not our destination. Kind of looks like Valentino. Oh, look, right across the street you can see the crossroads of the world when I vlog that. That globe spinning up there. We are here. Well, it looks like they're doing a little bit of work on the building, but we can still actually see the logos and everything now. For 4 months, from December of 1971 till March of 1972, the Rolling Stones would be holed up here working for hours and hours trying to put together Exile on Main Street. Now, what originally started out as Keith Richards wanting this to be the most raw album they ever did, he was hardcore into heroin addiction with his girlfriend, so Mick Jagger took over, and Mick had pretty much just become bored to death with straight up rock and roll. So he went out and hired Dr. John and Billy Preston to bring a little bit of a different sound to this. And once Billy Preston had taken Mick Jagger to a church to hear an evangelical choir, all of a sudden Mick Jagger got the idea that he wanted these lush overlays of female vocals, and he wanted more guitars, upright bass, he wanted lap steels, pedal steels, and we're actually coming up to the building where they spent those 4 months. Now, if you watch the documentary Stones in Exile, you'll actually see Mick Jagger revisiting this place and walking through this parking lot right here. See, it says 1962 to 2012 was their 50-year anniversary. And this is where they would have put together that whole album. Like I said, what's considered widely to be maybe the most definitive Rolling Stones album of all time. And there's a little bit better shot. God, can you imagine how many hours they would have sat there and Mick would have been working out vocals, trying out different vocal lines for Tumbling Dice and Sweet Virginia. Just amazing. Now, the reason that the Rolling Stones actually chose Robert Frank for this album cover was because they loved his work called The Americans. And even though they loved his photos, they decided to go with some outtakes for the cover of Exile on Main Street from The Americans, and then they used his photos of Mick down on Main Street for the back cover. And there were a ton of great records that were recorded here. I'll be back to do some other records in the future, but today, only Exile on Main Street. And it would actually be all of these buildings. Everything going all the way around the corner is the studio. And like I said, if you go watch Stones in Exile, you can actually see footage of Mick kind of messing around with the guitar and playing some keyboard parts inside this studio. Now, you used to be able to actually see, they used to have like windows and everything right here. Right now they're covered up for some reason. I don't know what they're eventually going to do with it, but sunset sound. Now, at first when Exile on Main Street came out, critics kind of didn't really know what to think of it, but like I told you guys earlier, over the years it's actually kind of, to some, been considered the definitive Rolling Stones record. It's not my favorite, but it's definitely maybe one of the best to sum up their sound. Well, here's the Psychiatry Museum. It's actually owned by the Scientologists, I believe. I'd actually probably vlog that, but I already know my friend Sam went there one time and said that they don't allow any kind of filming or photography inside, which is no surprise. And actually, if you guys remember my dearly departed vlog when I went to that museum, before he was there, he actually was right here for a short time. Well, not a short time, a few years. Well, since I now know that I'm almost definitely going to Ohio for Christmas, I've been putting together what I'm gonna vlog while I'm there, and I think you guys are really gonna enjoy it. Just, I know it's a little early, but something to look forward to in the next month. Now for me, honestly, Exile on Main Street, pretty much after that is when I lost interest in the Stones. I pretty much liked everything before that, but this was like the last great album that I thought they really made. Can you guys believe that that used to be Capitol Records? Isn't that nuts? Old Wallach's Music City, right there was Capitol Records. And if you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, go look up Wallach's Music City on my vlogs. You'll see what I'm talking about. And there's old Paramount. Alright, got a handful of things for tomorrow. Well, I'm home and I'm out taking this guy out for a walk, and it just dawned on me I'm gonna have to get a hold of John and see if Jaw's invited tomorrow for Thanksgiving. Look at his shadow bounce. Well, good evening, my friends. I hope you guys enjoyed this little blast back into music history, all the way back into 1971. Hope you all have a great Thanksgiving tomorrow. Well, I guess when you're watching this today, I know I will, and you guys will get to see it. I have a big vlog planned on Friday, actually, and I know you guys will enjoy this. Have a great night. I'll see you all tomorrow, and I will leave you with a few of my new headshots afterward, just in case you wanted to see them. These are the new ones that I got taken last week that I showed you in the vlog. Thank you, big thank you to Andy Rooney at Exact Digital. I am generally never too happy with the, well, not that I'm not happy with the photos I've gotten in the past, but they just weren't exactly what I was supposed to have or what I'm looking for, and he knocked it out of the park. So I was really happy about that, and I just wanted to give him a little extra thanks. So have a great night, guys. Happy Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to y'all later. Goodbye.